Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I am Sona Tumanyan. A conscripted serviceman sustained a gunshot wound in one of the military units of the Ministry of Defense. A criminal proceeding has been initiated in connection with the incident under the article on evading military service through simulation of illness or by other illegal means. The soldier, who was transported to the hospital, is a resident of the Ararat province. A statement released by the ministry notes that the serviceman underwent emergency surgery and is now under the care of doctors. His life is not in danger. The Russian side is demonstrating activity in diplomatic relations. In a conversation with his Russian counterpart, Putin, Iranian President Pezeshkian expressed satisfaction with the results of the negotiations held in Alaska, expressing hope that they will contribute to a swift resolution of the crisis in Ukraine. The press service of the Iranian president reports that Pezeshkian promised to oversee the acceleration of the construction of the Rasht-Astara railway, which plays a key role in the establishment of the North-South International Transport Corridor connecting the Persian Gulf with Russia and Central Asia. The Iranian leader also touched upon his recent visit to Armenia and spoke about Prime Minister Pashinyan's assurance that Iran's concerns were fully taken into account in the agreements with Azerbaijan and the US. Pezeshkian expressed support for the 3+3 dialogue format, with the participation of Iran and Russia as a more effective mechanism for resolving the issues in the Caucasus region. The interests of all regional players must be taken into account, stated Maxim Selesnyov, Russia's chargé d'affaires in Armenia, commenting on the signing of documents in Washington between Armenia, the US, and Azerbaijan. He noted that one only needs to look at the map to understand how Russia is connected to the South Caucasus, adding that after the August 8 meeting, the Armenian leadership informed the Russian side about the agreements that were reached. Selesnyov said that the Russian side discussed Armenia's obligations within the framework of its presence in the common customs area, as well as the bilateral agreements on border control, including on Armenia's southern borders. The Washington trilateral meeting will be talked about for a long time. At least in that regard, Trump currently has no rivals. This time, he sent photos to Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev with the inscription, "Ilham, you are a great leader." Aliyev then published these photos on his X page. In a photo sent by the American leader, Trump, Aliyev, and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan are holding hands after initialing the agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. "I highly appreciate President Trump's decisive support for the normalization of relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia, as well as for the peace agenda in the South Caucasus and the entire world. And for that, I once again express my deep gratitude to him," Aliyev wrote. Interpersonal relations are hindering the normalization of Russian-Ukrainian relations, stated Donald Trump during a briefing with journalists at the White House. According to him, Vladimir Putin refuses to meet with Volodymyr Zelensky simply because he doesn't like him, which, according to Trump, obstructs the establishment of peace. Happy end. And now, last week, it became clear that Nikol Pashinyan will also travel to Shanghai. And today, the warming of Russian-Chinese relations is already being discussed in the press. China is preparing for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, and as a part of it, the visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin and his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Prior to this, the Speaker of the Russian State Duma, Volodin, was received in Beijing. The letter conveyed Putin's warm greetings to President Xi. The conference begins on August 31. While Ukraine is struggling to secure a meeting with Putin, tensions are brewing with other neighboring countries. Ukraine and Hungary, a surprising combination, especially for a political scandal. Strikes by Ukrainian forces on the Druzhba oil pipeline are tantamount to an attack on Hungary and Slovakia, declared Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó. He believes that in this way, Kyiv, with the support of Brussels, which remains silent on the pipeline attacks, is trying to pressure Budapest into changing its position on the conflict in Ukraine and its bid to join the European Union. A brief report from the International Newsfeed follows.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has stated that Moscow's promises not to seize further territories are not a concession. According to him, Russia is seeking new pretexts to avoid stopping the war and is ignoring proposals for a ceasefire from the US and Ukraine. Zelensky emphasized that Kyiv has repeatedly expressed its readiness for negotiations without preconditions, but Moscow has consistently refused. He also noted that he discussed this situation with Trump, stressing the need for strong steps from Washington if Russia continues to evade dialogue. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has held negotiations with the foreign ministers of Finland, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine, as well as with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy. According to a statement from the State Department's press service, the parties agreed to continue cooperation in diplomatic efforts to end the Russian-Ukrainian conflict by achieving a stable settlement through negotiations. German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul has declared that Putin is mistaken in thinking he can play for time. According to him, the pressure on Moscow must continue, and for that purpose, the EU is preparing its 19th package of sanctions. Wadephul noted that it is now Putin's turn to prove his readiness to achieve a just peace, as Kyiv has already made its move by agreeing to negotiations without preconditions. The minister stressed that there can be no negotiations behind the backs of the Ukrainians, and reiterated Europe's continued political, economic, and military support for Kyiv. After a meeting with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, in response to a journalist's question about his attitude towards the leader of that country's enemy state, Donald Trump said that he has a great relationship with Kim Jong-un and expressed hope that it would remain the same. During the meeting with Lee Jae-myung in the Oval Office, Trump stated that he wants to meet with the North Korean leader this year. Recalling how he crossed from South Korea into North Korea in 2019 by traversing the demilitarized zone, he said that while everyone was going crazy with fear, he felt safe. Before the meeting with Lee, Trump had threatened on social media to halt deals with Seoul, but the tension between them was quickly smoothed over when Lee offered lavish compliments to Trump, praising the decor of the Oval Office. Nevertheless, Trump avoided directly answering whether he would reduce the number of American troops in South Korea, while also saying that he wants to break the lease agreement for a major military base between the U.S. and South Korea and acquire the territory as American property. Typhoon Kaijiki has caused significant damage to Vietnam. According to authorities, at least 3 people have been killed and 10 injured. The natural disaster has damaged nearly 7,000 homes, flooded more than 28,000 hectares of rice paddies, and toppled thousands of trees and over 300 power transmission poles, leading to widespread power outages in 5 provinces. 325,000 people have been evacuated. The streets of Hanoi, the country's capital, were inundated due to torrential rains. Cars were submerged up to their roofs in water. Meteorologists have warned that the rains will continue. As of Tuesday, Kajiki had weakened into a tropical storm and moved into the territory of neighboring Laos.
And while we're on the path to visa liberalization and in the midst of active negotiations, an application for tracking migrants will be introduced in Moscow starting September 1st. Through a QR code, a police officer can find out everything about a migrant: when they arrived, for how long, where they work, and whether or not there are any immigration violations. If the indicator is red, the police officer must detain them. If it's green, then no questions, announced Mayor Sergei Sobyanin. UN agencies do not cease to cry out about the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. People are starving to death. There are numbers. Nearly 300 people have already died from malnutrition, at least 100 of whom are children. The number of Palestinian victims over the past 2 years is approaching 63,000. But the journalists caught in the epicenter of all this are also quite literally among the victims. Media representatives have been killed by Israeli strikes. Moreover, a missile was directed at a hospital.
The situation in the Gaza Strip has sharply deteriorated. Israeli forces have struck the reception area of the Nasser hospital. The attack resulted in the deaths of 15 people, 5 of whom were journalists from leading international media outlets: Al Jazeera, Reuters, NDC, and AP. This attack, with such a tragic outcome, was not the only one. Days earlier, another 5 people were killed as a result of a targeted strike on a tent set up for journalists near the entrance of Gaza's main Al-Shifa hospital. Among them was the well-known Al Jazeera journalist Anas al-Sharif, along with his colleagues Mohamed Kraika, Ibrahim Zahir, Mohamed Nofal, and Mumin Aliwan. Minutes before being killed, al-Sharif had managed to post on the X platform about the start of intense bombing of Gaza City.
I have never hesitated to convey the truth as it is, without distortion, in the hope that God will be a witness against those who remained silent, who condoned our murder. Even the tortured remains of the bodies of our children and women could not move their hearts.
Al Jazeera condemned the killings, describing them as a transparent and premeditated attack on press freedom and a desperate attempt to silence the voices exposing the impending occupation of Gaza. Another correspondent for the channel, Hani Mahmoud, who was a block away from the site of the strike, said that his colleagues were killed because they were relentlessly raising the alarm about starvation, famine, and malnutrition, and because they were conveying the truth about this crime to the world. The latest attacks are taking place against the backdrop of a deepening humanitarian disaster. According to official data, the number of deaths from starvation has reached 289, 115 of them children, while the total number of victims since October 2023, according to the UN, has exceeded 62,000. Parallel to the military activity, the Israeli government has confirmed its plan to capture Gaza City, calling it Hamas's last bastion. Defense Minister Israel Katz threatened to raze the city to the ground if Hamas does not accept Israel's terms. In response, Hamas stated that this plan demonstrates Israel's lack of genuine intention to achieve a ceasefire, while pointing to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as responsible for the deaths of everyone, including the hostages. Expanding the geography of the conflict, the Israeli Air Force launched strikes on the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, in response to a missile fired by the Houthis towards Israel. As a result of the strikes, at least 6 people were killed and 86 were injured. Thus, the siege of Gaza and the ongoing rocket strikes, the killing of journalists, the deliberate starvation of the civilian population according to reports from UN agencies, the plans to expel the Palestinians of Gaza, and the periodic strikes on Yemen are intertwining to create an explosive regional situation, where, according to experts, the prospect of diplomatic solutions is becoming increasingly dim and the number of human casualties continues to rise. Monica Hyroyan, ReOpen Media.
Being in harmony with nature has an indescribable effect, and that bond is strengthened first and foremost by caring for nature. Every time paper is torn, another tree is cut down. Employees of the Environmental and Mining Inspection Body, acting on data received from the National Security Service of Armenia, conducted inspections at the EVOCABANK branch of the Hayastanic state organization. The inspections, carried out between August of last year and July of this year, recorded 693 illegally felled trees. The damage caused to the flora amounted to 43 million drams. The results of the inspection have been transferred to the investigative committee. Similar cases have been uncovered several times in recent years, specifically at the EVOCABANK forestry enterprise. This area is considered one of the most problematic. There are fireworks in the world of sports. Armenians continue to impress with their performances in tennis, chess, and football. In the Italian Football Championship, the team of Armenian football star Henrik Mkhitaryan Inter Milan defeated Torino 5-0. The start of the US Open was also a victorious one for world number 9 Karen Khachanov. And the positive buzz around Aronian continues in the 7th round of the Sinkfield Cup 2025, part of the Grand Chess Tour, which is nearing its conclusion in St. Louis. Armenian chess player Levon Aronian, who now represents the United States, played to a draw against Fabiano Caruana. He trails Caruana by half a point heading into the tournament's final rounds. But on the other side of the bliss of victory are the anger of defeat and emotional outbursts. Russian tennis player Daniil Medvedev broke his racket in anger after his defeat in the first round of the US Open. That's much for today. Stay informed with ReNews. I'm Sona Tumanyan. Goodbye.